The East Wall residents group blocked Dublin's Port Tunnel last night as part of a protest over the housing of asylum seekers at an old ESB building in the area. And for more on this, I'm joined now by Social Democrats TD for Dublin Central, Gary Gannon. Gary, fill us in on what exactly happened last night, please.
Yeah, Carl. Well, so last night a group claiming to be the East Wall residents group blocked the port tunnel in protest at the opening of a centre for providing accommodation to those in their international protection system or fleeing Ukraine. But I do want to make it very clear from the very outset that I actually represent East Wall, and I've been inundated with calls from people saying that protest certainly doesn't represent their views or how they would approach things. And Karen, I think it's like what started out certainly last week as a kind of a larger cohort of people from the north inner city in East Wall, discussing how they weren't informed, didn't feel consulted, has very quickly descended into what I will only describe now as a far right rally.
Okay.
I think that was very present on Saturday.
Firstly, Gary, are you saying that they're not residents? I mean, I'm sure there are residents in East Wall who don't support these protests, but are some of the people who are at these protests residents of East Wall, or are you suggesting that they are all people who've been parachuted in?
No, girl, I'm not suggesting that they're all. There certainly are resident people there who are resident in East Wall and actually in the wider surrounding areas too. But I do fully believe and have witnessed people being brought in from elsewhere, the issue being hijacked by other people with very different agendas. Just to give an example of the type of things that were discussed at this far-right rally in East Wall on Saturday, for example, for your listeners, they may not be aware, they went on to discuss EU flags, talking about no flag other than the Irish flag should be flown in Ireland, including the Ukraine flag. They were discussing the super woke from the stage. 5G was being brought in. The culture wars were being brought in. The toy show was being discussed from the stage, and that's not reflective of Irish society, despite the fact that a kid from East Wall was on the toy show. Look, this issue definitely started off about the ESB building on East Wall, but it's gone into something much more beyond that.
Do you think, Gary, that what is driving these protests, these particular protests in your own constituency, is it racism? Is that what this is? I mean, I've seen some of the footage of, and I've heard audio clips and all of that from the protests. Obviously, haven't seen them with my own eyes, so it's hard to gauge. But certainly, some of what has been said has been relatively shocking.
It's been absolutely shocking. It's been discussed, and I condemn lots of what's been said from the stage in the absolute fullest, and I will not equivocate on that. I do believe that certainly in the initial protest, people arrived there. I wouldn't have agreed with the fact that that's where they went and aimed their protest out of frustration at feeling that they weren't informed that there was going to be an issue in regards how a community would be resourced to accommodate such a large number of people coming into an area that was already under strain in the initial protest. What's followed on from that, I condemn in the fullest, and I do believe is racism.
So there is racism happening and racism being expressed. Do the people of East Wall, the ordinary people of East Wall, though, are there some valid concerns, I suppose I'm asking, about the communities, I suppose, the pressure the community is under, housing lots of asylum seekers or that kind of thing? Can we separate genuine concerns from racism? Is that possible?
I think we absolutely have to separate. And I'm going to go back to the initial expressions of concern, frustration, or simply about the fact that people felt they hadn't been informed. These walls are relatively tight-knit community in a lot of ways, although it has changed over the last decade, certainly. They felt that they hadn't been informed about the fact that there'd been a change of use in the building, that there'll be a large number of people coming in. A lot of people were concerned about the standard of the building that families and people were going to be accommodated in. And in the absence of an information vacuum, what was filled there was a group of right-wing, anti-immigrant people who came in and filmed that with misinformation. I think the minister and the government certainly didn't help by bussing people in their international protection system in towards the later parts of an evening, not giving any information out. I think that could have been done infinitely better. But what's happening there now is not a reflection of the community in East Wall as a whole. Certainly some people live in East Wall, by all means. But the issues there has been hijacked by groups with a much wider, far more sinister agenda. And that's been played out certainly in the protests we've seen on Saturday and last night.
Gary, thank you for speaking to us this morning. That is Social Democrats TD for Dublin Central, Gary Gannon. Let us know if you have had any involvement in the protests, or if you've witnessed the protests, or indeed if you have in your own area, because protests are happening outside of East Wall as well. We'd like to know on the ground what's happening in various areas, or what people think about it.